Yes, sir. You want to address the committee?
Thank you, Mr.
Or
Chairman.
questions?
I know Nick Dronius was here at the last session.
Yes.
And he may have passed out some written testimony to present to you. The reason I'm asking is my father is Judge Harold DeMoss of the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. He's a senior judge, and the inspiration behind the compact really comes from Judge DeMoss. He sends his warmest regards to you and the committee members today, and he asked if at all possible, if his written testimony, his position paper on why the Compact for America is right for this moment in American history, if you'd be so kind as to allow that to be introduced into the record.
Certainly. Please do. Yeah, that will.
There's other written testimony in there from the members of the Compact for America Advisory Council, including 2 leading economists. Also, Ilya Shapiro at the Cato Institute is on the advisory council. That's all relevant information that we would like for the committee members to receive. Really, the Compact for America has 4 pillars. 1, to impose fiscal responsibility on the Congress. 2, to begin to restore the relevancy of the state legislatures when it comes to federal policy. Provide a way that state-initiated constitutional change can occur quickly, efficiently, and safely.
Keep the doors shut. We got too many in the room as it is. We're overcrowded. This room can only, by capacity, I think, hold 50 people. I think we're beyond that as it stands now. I'm going to have to ask, if you will, Michael, go get a guard and put the door and not let anybody further come in until the place empties out somewhat.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. DeMoss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, to provide a quick, safe, and efficient way for the states to initiate constitutional change to deploy the powers granted to them under Article 5, but in doing so, embracing the concerns of Eagle Forum and other groups that have been expressed for years. We spent 2.5 years developing this compact vehicle by doing just that. We engaged Andy Schlafly with the Eagle Forum for a period of
Sorry, go ahead.
4 months. Mr. Schlafly knows Judge DeMoss. Judge DeMoss was on the conference calls with Mr. Schlafly as we were discussing the compact with him, and they were very instrumental in making this compact what it is. Just consider the compact. It's simply the delivery vehicle. It's carrying a payload. The payload is the balanced budget amendment. You don't even get to the compact unless you decide, first of all, that you like the payload and you want to both propose and ratify that payload. If you can get past that point, then the compact itself is just the delivery vehicle to do that quickly, safely, and efficiently. So if you put it in those simple terms, it may make this 12, 15-page document a little bit easier to understand. And I'm here to serve at the pleasure of the sponsors and you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for being here. You came from
Houston, sir.
Houston. All right. Thank you for your appearance today. Let me start out with my initial question, which I think I also asked at the time in subcommittee, but I'm not still concerned about. I'm not a constitutional scholar by any means, but the concern I have with regards to the binding of future legislative bodies, which is what we're seeking to do, and say under the Georgia Constitution anyway, there are limitations as to what we're able to do as one legislative body saying you can't change the law, this will be law for a future body, and realize it doesn't become irrevocable until you have 38 states agreeing to it, but all of a sudden you have 38 states and Georgia legislature says at that point in time we don't want to participate, and yet you're saying this is irrevocable. And so I'm torn between that part of it as far as how do you enforce something against a legislative body who has the ultimate say-so about what they're doing or not doing under state law. Anybody want to answer that?
Can I just qualify? I'm not an attorney. I'm a CPA,
Okay.
so don't.
Don't stare at you.
I think it is a very valid concern. I think that the principle behind this is state sovereignty. And what we're talking about here is states exercising their Article 5 rights. As a state, each state has the same right as any other state in the Union to petition its federal government for a convention. And it is a question of the manner in which you get there. This compact is designed to try to keep a unified front going forward. It does that up until 38 states, anyone can withdraw. If and after the 38 are there, even at that point in time, the commission can allow a member state to withdraw at that point in time. So there still is a slight release valve. But nonetheless, what you're saying is correct, Mr. Chairman. You are conveying, in a sense, for that moment in time, you are conveying a commitment to stick with the process. I think that it's a very narrow conveyance of state sovereignty for one reason, and that is for the convention for a balanced budget. And one thing to, I think, keep in mind, the committee should keep in mind, is that the actions that our federal government is taking in the continuation of extending debt is an action that is committing future generations without their vote to have to pay off that debt and share that burden. And no one is speaking for them. So I would hope that we would take the position that we would want to move forward with that convention. We want to move forward with that endeavor.
I think, speaking for myself, I know other legislators, we all have a burning desire to do something to put a throttle on what's being done at the federal level. I know there's several bills floating around, or resolution bills, or bills of resolution rather, that are seeking to do things stepwise, starting the process. And I guess the question we have to address as a authority here in this committee is what is the appropriate process to be considered as a way of accomplishing that. And I only said, in a sense, that as you take the photograph of the moment, we're doing it today without knowledge of what may be 2 or 3 years from now, the circumstances when they come to the convention, but we've already detailed the language that cannot be in any way modified by the members of that convention. And even as you say, back during the initial constitutional convention, there were states seeking to withdraw, but they were persuaded not to. They could have, certainly at that time. And we're trying to now limit the ability to have a withdrawal. Those are some issues. Ms. Bragg, you want to add something?
Yeah, and the way they've layered, certain things to be activated after certain things happen throughout this document. The window in which we're bound is once 38 states join until the time that they go to the convention, which we estimated to be about 60 days, because anyone can withdraw from the compact prior to that, so it's a very small window.
It's after 30. The thing I'm looking at is taking the photograph today of what we're going to do at that convention and not being able to say to those who are at the convention, we've got to do something a little more wordy-wise, changing something here, that they won't have that ability as part of the process. That's a concern to me. That's all I'm saying. Many of us, I'll say all of us, many of us look to see how can we put some type of bridle on the spending by the federal government. I think we've got a question over here. Here is Mr. Roger Bruce.
Something similar as came up in a committee meeting yesterday, and I'm going to ask the same question that I asked then. It appears that you're trying to do two things at the same time, and I'm trying to make sure I understand what is really at the basis of what the bill is. It looks like you're trying to get the federal government to balance its budget, but it also looks like you're trying to establish a methodology for conventions ad infinitum. And so I want to be clear what the purpose is, what your purpose is, because it's what it appears, and I'm just trying to make sure I understand. What it appears is that that you're using a topic that people have an emotional tie to, which is balancing the budget, in order to get control over how conventions are put in place and and trying to move things forward by appealing to people's fear about the budget. But it's two different things. So what's going on?
Mr. Chairman.
Sure, respond.
Representative Bruce, I think that I would maybe disagree with some of the characterization, but I think that you're right. What we're doing is we have a balanced budget amendment in a compact, and the compact is the vehicle by which to get there. So what you're doing in this legislation is that you are establishing a mechanism by which the states in this union can come to an agreement as to language before you get to the convention, to avoid a runaway convention where any and all things of the Constitution would be up for grabs. So you're trying to define before you get there what the rules of the game are going to be and what the language is going to be. So if that is successful, and if the state and other states join in, then that could set a precedent for how future amendments are considered by this country. Bearing in mind that you still have to have 3/4 of the states in this country to agree to the compact before it ever has any real effect. And the other part of it is actually to, sincerely, and I mean this in all sincerity, is to limit the increasing debt and the federal government continues to build up against our future generations.
But if it is that the state, if the legally elected representatives of the state wanted to get a message to Washington to say that we want you to balance the budget, could we not do that by having a resolution voted on saying we want you to balance the budget? And then separately from that, if we wanted to have some sort of rules around the convention, then you would have legislation that dealt specifically with the convention, as opposed to trying to put the two things together and clouding what's really going on.
Well, there's nothing going on in the sense of trying to, there's no one trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes here. Your proposal is exactly another way that it can be done. You can submit an application. And in fact, the state of Georgia submitted an application, I believe in 1976, for a balanced budget amendment, just a convention to talk about a balanced budget amendment. So did countless other states. But the number of those, I say countless, it wasn't enough. It was 32 states. There was not enough states to do it. And over that period of time, it's been unsuccessful in trying to build that convention. So you can do it that way, theoretically, but it has not ever happened.
One last thing. How many times have we amended the United States Constitution?
By Article 5?
How many? We've added 26.
We got
26 amendments to the Constitution. Is that correct?
But not through a state.
But we've changed it 26 times. So there is a methodology in place already to change the Constitution of the United States, and it's been done 26 times.
Correct.
So it works. The country's not that old. So 26 times it's been done. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So there is a process in place that allows us to do it if the country wants it done. Is that not correct?
Well, can I speak now, Mr. Chairman? Well, the country obviously does want it done because this polls bipartisan north of 75% across the nation. And the last time something was ratified to the Constitution, it took 215 years to get it done. So the approach to take an Article 5, every amendment that's been ratified to the Constitution, it was a supermajority of Congress, and they're obviously not going to act to tie their own hands. So it's going to have to come from the states if we're serious about fiscal reform in this country and saving this country from financial ruin. And we're almost at the tipping point of no return, and I'm very concerned. But this approach is one of many we could take, and if we don't act, then I'm not sure we're going to continue to operate. But it's oh shoot, I had a thought that escaped me.
Right.
Anyway, but I don't think Congress is going to act on their own, and the only time they've had amendments is with the supermajority of Congress. So.
Thank you. Yes, sir, Mr. DeMoss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just one brief comment to that. You're exactly right. All previous amendment efforts have been through the congressional initiated part of Article 5, but not one of those amendments has ever limited the power of Congress. They've never proposed an amendment to limit their own power. So that's the big difference here. Is it's the states proposing an amendment that would actually limit the power of Congress. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee to the presenters? I guess in closing, let me say that as a read the need as you have it for the compact is because of the fear or concerns. If you just have the regular call of the convention, it may be a quote runaway convention and no one can limit what can be brought forward or done by that convention, even by taking pledges, whatever it may be. You're seeing that use of the compact as a contractual way of limiting that approach.
Yes.
Is that correct statement?
That's correct.
Thank you.